everyone how much you love them, and also how we're going to start trying to have this. Are we good? All right, start having this conversation build throughout the city of Miami. So definitely want to appreciate you guys coming out, and hopefully you guys enjoy the Q&A that we have. So now we're going to introduce Stefan Coulot, the president and director of the Dr. Brandt Foundation.
Hi, how are you tonight? So first, thank you all of you for being here. I'm so blessed and fortunate. It's our second session on the Say I Love You speaker series. And as a matter of fact, I can thank enough is Rudolph, who welcomed us for the first session on Say I Love You. And today, I want to thank Sean and his team to welcome the Say I Love You speaker series one more time. Thank you. I'm Stefan Coulot, President and CEO and owner of the Dr. Brandt skincare line, and also the founder of the Dr. Brandt Foundation. And how everything started. Last December, we did our first event during Art Basel, where we did our first session on the Say I Love You. And we have been very fortunate that the Nike team were there, and they wanted to pursue the conversation. And the purpose of that is to elevate a conversation about mental health, and also overall wellness, and also connecting with local community. And I think it's the perfect reflection of what we're doing tonight, which I'm so happy and pleased. We want also to inspire individuals to incorporate creative and activital physical that be part of their lifestyle, and they can be very inspiring role of the healthier lifestyle that can create positively impact on their mental health. And tonight, this is what we're going to do through a conversation we're going to have. And then it will be an open question and answer to all of you. But what I can tell you about the Dr. Brandt Foundation, we're obviously committed to honoring Dr. Brandt life and legacy through collaboration in individuals that we think Dr. Brandt was passionate about it. And through this collaboration, we create a platform and a voice that address mental health and self-care. And we come up with the Say I Love You. And as you can see in the shoes, Say I Love You, we're trying to branding as well in order to support every activities that we want to. And I'm inviting you, by the way, if you want to purchase the shoes, it's a limited edition that will be end by the end of this month. Is the shoe surgeons, Dominique Chambroni. You can go on the website www.shoesurgeon.com, and 30% of the proceeds will be giving back to the foundation. And the concept behind was, I think, if we can say I love you to yourself or to someone, I think there is a point that maybe someone won't hurt themselves. And I think it's a simple thing, but simple thing can create hope, and when a hope, there's a beginning of something. And tonight, I'm very delighted to have a panelist that are going to discuss about that through real expertise, real conversation, and real experiences. And I'm going to ask Toki de la Cruz. She's going to be the moderator tonight, but I think we should thank her, and also Romeo Aldana. Where is he? Where are you, Romeo? He's over there. I think without these two people who are deeply involved in the foundation, I think tonight we won't be there. So they make it happen. I want to thank them as well. So thank you. So Toki is going to be the moderator and raise a question and introduce the panelists. We have a very strong expert tonight, and I cannot wait to engage this conversation, and I look forward to spending this evening with all of you. Thank you very much again.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming out and joining us. I see a lot of familiar faces and a lot of new faces. But I just want to thank the community for really making time to be here with us today. The panelists that are up here were actually specifically curated for tonight. And one of the reasons that I reached out to these individuals were that they are people that encourage and are influential in this community, but they're also people that really inspire not only me, but also the arenas and the areas that they're in. I am not a runner, and also my brother just opened a donut shop in South Beach, so that complicates my whole running thing. But I do have to say that the individuals here really inspire me and push me to eventually ease into running, which I really want to be able to do. And I'm going to introduce the three guests with us tonight, but also there are three individuals in my mind that are very three specific phases. And for me, this is Dr. Levinson. I'm going to introduce him in a minute. Dr. Levinson, for me, represents what's happening in my day-to-day and daily. Norma at the end is what the short-term goals are. And then Frankie is who represents for me what long-term goals are. And that's why, no, not because you're old, but these three really represent that in a phase for what I think is really just universal for all of us. So Dr. Levinson is here in Miami. He is a physician and a psychiatrist. He practices yoga. He focuses on whole health and wellness. We're talking about nutrition, balanced lifestyle, incorporating all of those things so it's not just let's focus on the physical, let's also incorporate what's important inside and mentally. And I want to welcome Dr. Levinson, who is also the founder and the director of a practice here, and it's called Vitality, Health, and Wellness. Thank you, Dr. Levinson. Okay. And I'm going to introduce Norma over there in the red. And so this is Norma now. Norma, for me, represents the short-term goals for me because Norma was inspired to, for the first time, run the half marathon for the Miami Marathon. And what she did was actually document her journey, and she opened up her life to everyone using the platform of social media to talk about what that journey is. And what was very important watching this was Norma was able to show things in her life where she was exposing people to the vulnerabilities, the level of self-doubt. But in the end, she motivated so many people, and she had people running with her, and she inspired people. And for me, Norma represents that. So I'm welcoming Norma now to the panel. And this is famous Frankie. I'm going to say that because everyone that I have met, not only in Nike, but also just in this community, knows about Frankie. And I think what's important about community leaders and leaders that are around us is sometimes they're so focused on taking care of the community and taking care of individuals that they sometimes don't realize how big their actual effect is. And it's important for us also to reach out to those individuals and hear their stories. And that's why we're here having this panel, so we can talk to each of these individuals and hear from their wisdom, from their experience. And so I would like to welcome Frankie Ruiz. So I wrote several questions for each of the panelists to really hit some things that I think we need to ask regarding running, regarding physical health and mental health, and also what it means for us as an individual and what it means for us as a community. And I'm going to start with Dr. Levinson. So we are talking about the level of incorporating a balanced lifestyle. We're talking about taking time to meditate, taking time to be aware of healthy eating and the level of nutrition. But when we're talking about mental health, where do we start with that? How do we start incorporating that into our life if we want to be more aware of that?
Well, that's a good question. I think you sort of captured it when you were leading up to the question. Mental health is really about self-care. It's about doing all of the things on a day-to-day basis to love yourself. I mean, we have this disconnected relationship with ourselves where we're moving through our lives, and social media certainly makes that a lot harder. where we don't have a relationship with what's happening in the moment to us, how we feel about the things that are happening. And what do you do to feed yourself in the morning? Are you just in a rush? Are you waking up with enough time to take care of yourself? Do you stretch? Do you breathe? Do you take time to be with the people who you have around you that are part of your life? So mental health is really about being in your life, consciously in your life. And really from yoga and meditation, all of that teaches is about consciousness. It's about attending to what's real, not just what our fantasies are. So life's hard, to be sure, life is hard, and there's a lot of challenges. But by being actively engaged in your actual life is the best way to move towards health, mentally, physically, and otherwise.
So I actually want to ask Norma about this also because Norma, like I said, is an inspiration for me, but she uses social media to talk about what her journey was. And Norma, you are the ambassador for everything that is cool in Miami. You know everything that's happening nightlife-wise, and so many people look at you to see what's happening in Miami. But one of the questions I wanted to know was, when you started talking about preparing and training for the marathon, did you feel vulnerable admitting to people how difficult this process was?
I agree with what he said about how social media is kind of like takes over living in the present. And so I do try to always just be aware of the power of it. And I have to try my best on a daily basis to kind of restrict screen time in a sense. But what I wanted to do with my running journey and even just my fitness journey in general was just be honest and show the good and the bad. You know, I always say that just like running isn't pretty, it's not easy. It's really hard, it's sweaty, and I don't want to do it. The whole time I was running the marathon, I was like, I just want to finish this because I want it to be over, not because, you know, this, I like talk to myself in my brain mentally. You know, I'm really tough on myself, and I'm sure a lot of other runners are, just trying to power yourself through. But for me, I always wanted to be open and honest about the ups and downs, because I think that social media makes it so that everything has to be perfect and everything has to be great, and that every day's a good day. And so with the journey leading up to my training for the marathon, I was like, you know, I would say it on my social media. I'd be like, I don't really want to do this today. It's really tough. It was hard. This was a bad run. Then when I had a good one, I'm like, hey, I'm feeling good today. You know, I tried to vocalize it, but I mean, I got really honest feedback, and it's, you know, I think in general, the underlying conversation of today is like, everyone feels this way, and everyone's going through a struggle. So it is hard to get up and do something for yourself, like run or go work out or take a class. But immediately, I just would always receive messages of people that were like, wow, I feel that way too, and like, oh, even if it's like that I inspired them to get up and go do a run, you know, that day. It was always positive feedback, you know. So I feel if we're all more vocal about our vulnerabilities, then, you know, we'll feel more comfortable together. Yeah.
Thank you. So I have a question for Frankie. Frankie, as the founder of the Miami Marathon and a community leader and working with the youth, how do you feel about the importance of talking to individuals, not just to encourage them to run, but just also for mental wellness? Can you tell us more about your story and really just how it all came about?
Sure. First off, I wanted to thank everybody for coming out. This is a huge group. You guys should give yourselves a round of applause for coming out. You guys deserve the applause. I also like to thank everyone that was involved in inviting me to be part of this panel. I think that I sit in a unique position in that I'm promoting running all the time, and I have to preface usually any conversation I have about running by saying that I don't think of it as a religion. In other words, there's no no sport that's greater than running or vice versa or anything like that, or it's not something that you have to do. If not, you're not part of us or part of a group. Running just represents one of those real simple, very democratic sport where everyone can enter, either it's a race or a run club, without fear of much. There's not a whole lot of barrier to entry on it. And I'm constantly preaching that because I think that it's such an easy place for someone to find not just refuge, but a place where they can blossom as a person. And oftentimes, I think throughout my history in the sport, 18, 19 years now of promoting the Miami Marathon, I've realized that it's not about changing people necessarily, like making them more fit or better looking or any of that. It's just putting them in a better environment. And I think the environment that running breeds, athletics in general, tends to be a pretty positive environment. If you haven't yet come out to one of our groups out here, or any group out there, you get a sense that everyone's kind of pushing in the same direction. Not a whole lot of judgments for whatever reason. I think it's sweat that kind of acts as the equalizer. But it's just bringing somebody to a completely different environment that makes them comfortable with who they are. I consider myself pretty different. I don't know. I think about 25 years ago, I was the kid running laps, and at PE class. It wasn't normal. Unless you were punished, you weren't expected to run a bunch of laps. And I struggled with that. That was my differentiator. It was running, or it was sport, or that particular activity within sport. And I think throughout the years, I've realized that it's okay. I mean, now we got 20,000 people doing it, so obviously we inspired a lot of people to be different like me or like us. And listening to Norma's story a couple weeks back, we were running. I realized that that's exactly what it was about. It had nothing to do with how fast she was running. In fact, I think originally she was probably a little embarrassed to say, her time or whatnot. But she realized that it had nothing to do with the actual time, but it had more to do with the time spent amongst other people and inspiring the people she's inspired through social media. So, sorry, that was my long intro, but I kind of had that one bottled up. But I don't know if that answered the question a little bit.
No, that's great. Thank you. Dr. Levinson, when we are running, when we're doing those kinds of physical activities, what is actually happening to our bodies, right? Because I spoke to my friend Joe today, and Joe looked really different. And I was like, hey, what's up? What are you doing? And Joe was like, oh, I feel really zen. I ran 4 miles today. So Joe has never done that before. And he was explaining to me how he just kind of in his head was like, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do it today. And it took him a very long time. But he was so pleased with how he felt afterwards because he committed to something and he finished it, but he also felt really great. So what is happening to us when that kind of click happens with our bodies being put into that kind of mode?
Well, you're kind of describing two different things, right? Like with your friend, there's this piece where Joe went beyond what he thought he could do. Like it's carved out a space for himself, he had set a goal, and he accomplished it. That has a certain kind of psychological ramification to sort of break the barriers of where your limitations are, whether that's doing a handstand or, whatever, running 4 miles. But beyond that, there's another piece that when you push yourself physically, when you exercise, whether it's running or some other kind of athletic, that there are changes in your biochemistry. There are changes in the way your brain functions. And it's not just endorphins, right? Endorphins are these sort of internal opiates that we all make and make us feel good that are talked about when people reference runner's high. It's just one neurotransmitter that's being distributed differently. You dump dopamine and norepinephrine and serotonin, and there's a feel-good experience to exercise, which is why we all should do it. I mean, it's not just that exercise takes the bark out of the dog. I mean, it's good for you to vent some of that pent-up energy, and we live these sedentary lives which are even more profoundly part of our existence in this decade than it was 2 decades ago. So it's great for you to be physical, and physicality is, this is how we evolved. We evolved as physical beings, and it was part of survival, which has sort of been diluted as part of modern times.
I want to give just a little bit more background to how this actual panel even came to be and how we all were here together. Like Stefan had mentioned, we actually did an Art Basel event. The Dr. Brandt Foundation did our first event in December, and we were so thankful that individuals from Nike were there because they facilitated what has happened here. And not only that, Kiara, Arthur, Shane, Corey, Michael were all really big parts of how this came together. And they're also a really big part of the Nike Run Club. So while I am not a runner, when I came and saw what they were a part of in this store, I was so shocked with the level of camaraderie and acceptance and just being so inclusive with everyone, because I don't run because I'm very intimidated by it. And when I first came, I saw the leadership from Frankie. I saw individuals in the Run Club that welcomed me, even though I'm only in the walking club. But I just wanted to let people know that with what you're doing, Frankie, you are overseeing hundreds of runners in this community. And I don't know if any of you know, but Frankie actually has done a TED Talk, and something that he emphasized in that TED Talk was a level of community. And I just want to talk, Frankie, about how important that is as a runner to be part of that, and how many runners you oversee on a weekly basis. So.
Yes, and again, I'm not saying any of this stuff to brag. I coined a term. I don't want to say I coined the term, but I borrowed a term from somebody and said they're humbly proud of certain things. And one of the things I'm humbly proud of is on a weekly basis, through about 8 different run clubs throughout Miami-Dade County, we have close to 1,000 people running a week.
That's amazing.
Part of a group that they don't pay a single dime to be a part of, because that was my first intention when we started this almost 10 years ago. And thankful to Nike and Baptist Health and several groups, we've been able to maintain this level of free that has allowed everybody to be a part of it. But going back to the connection that I think all of us yearn for, I can't tell you the amount, and I can't share every single one of them, because one, out of privacy, but second, just we'd probably be here all night. The amount of folks that write either an Instagram message or a Facebook message or talk to me at the end of a run club, letting me know how much they needed the run. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't necessarily, initially it was maybe something vain, hey, I came out to lose weight, or some other sort of feel-good part of it, but it was more so that they felt part of something. And that connection, not only to another group like them, but the connection to Miami, because I think Shane started off saying this could be a pretty tough place to connect with the community. And these folks that connected 10 years ago are still friends. They're still hanging out. In fact, I went through a divorce, and that's my tough time. And I met my current wife, and I just had a baby at Run Club 9 years ago, or something like that, close to 8 years ago. And I'm not saying, again, everyone's going to come here and find a soulmate, but it is a place where you do ultimately find a connection. It could be just a friendship. It could be a best friend. It could just be somebody you shared a couple moments together. It doesn't have to be for the rest of your lives. And that I found to be so empowering. I would get messages from folks. I have one guy in particular about 8 years ago. It said, hey, I've had my hair this way my whole life, and this is what makes me who I am, and I'm not accepted anywhere because of my hair. I was shocked that he had such a struggle with this. And this is the only group that embraced me. And there's nothing special about the group. It's not like we all sit around and we're like, hey, everybody, bring everybody in. It's just something that happens through sport and something that happens through running. Hard to explain, but it happens. And I encourage you guys to give it a shot. ignore the punishment aspect of it. Ignore those folks that tell you it's boring. Go out on a Tuesday night. There's 400 people that apparently find it pretty boring. That all just come out to sweat a little. Initially, like I said, you're a little self-conscious. You're a little intimidated. 2-3 weeks into it, you're like, I feel like I've just discovered my body. Like, and one little thing before I turn over the mic, I read this at some point, which is the mind, the health of the mind begins with the body. And it's sometimes we try to do it backwards. We're like, I'm gonna commit to something, and I'm gonna convince my mind that I need to to commit to it, and therefore then my body's gonna follow. I think it's the opposite. I think you gotta throw your body into it. Because once you start treating that body the way it deserves to be treated and respected, you'll see 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the road, the body's choosing for you. It's kind of saying, you know what, my willpower has grown quite a bit, and now my mind is a little bit better than it was before I started. So start with the body, and I think the mind's going to follow shortly thereafter.
Thank you. Norma, I want to talk more about what the response has been like for you, and whether the community really opened up to what you were sharing, and how you plan to use social media to be able to talk more about the physical and mental journey you're going through. I actually met Norma through social media, and now I'm excited that she's here being a panelist. But even with the foundation and just the hashtag Say I Love You Speaker series, which we want to be able to take all over, the power of social media for us as a small foundation has been very powerful, because it connected us to someone like Norma. And now Norma has a voice and a platform. And so my question to you, Norma, is what was the response like when you shifted and really talked about what you were doing and how you plan to use that in the future with future athletics and physical and mental projects that you're doing?
I think one thing that's important, and Frankie was touching on, is when you're trying to be a part of any community, and I always say it when people want to, maybe do events in Miami or throw parties or get involved with certain social scenes, I'm the kind of person that I want to live the story before I tell the story. And so it's very intimidating to enter a new classroom, a new group, a new scene. And from the beginning, I was really scared, just like you were, Toki, to go to the run club. It's intimidating. People with their shirts off, people look fit, people look great. But on the other coin is, I always say this to people that are always so doubtful. They're like, oh, how long is it? How much miles? I'm like, there's literally people there's a man in a wheelchair. Like, what's your excuse? Why are you doubting yourself? Like, we are way more powerful than we take for ourselves. And I mean, from that, there's people running with their dogs. There's not a microscope looking at you running. Everyone's just collectively trying to push and encourage each other. And that's really hard to find in a group of people. We're all always intimidated. If you were just to turn to the person next to you and start talking to them, we're all intimidated by each other. So naturally, when you level the playing field and kind of put yourself into a community of runners, it's not about who you are, what you do. It's about trying to encourage and push each other forward in the goal, which is just to finish the run. Then you feel so amazing afterwards. But for me, I say all that to say that I felt like I had to participate in the run club and runs and fitness and live that storyline to be able to tell it, because I always want to come off as authentic, because I am authentic to myself. And so that's why when I do share on social media, or to use the tool of social media, I try to be authentic and honest to myself too. So it's just been, I think it's really cool that people recognize that. And it also makes me think, why is that so weird that people are just, to be honest, on social media, that we all, have maybe weight issues, we have acne, we struggle with self-conscious, we're self-conscious about ourselves. And so with me being vocal on social media, it shouldn't be weird, or it shouldn't be out of the ordinary. But I'm proud to be able to share that storyline so more people feel comfortable. But yeah, I feel like you just have to live it before you kind of yell on the mountaintops about it. And I'm still learning. I'm not a professional runner. I haven't even gone in like 2 weeks, so I feel bad about that. But I'll be here tomorrow, and they're trying to convince me to do the marathon this weekend, and I'm thinking about that. But we're way more powerful than we than we think, and I think we're all capable of doing extraordinary things if we put our mind to it. But it's definitely like running is like a really big mental kind of sport too, because you constantly have to coach yourself. The only reason that you're running or you're out there is because of yourself. So yeah.
So Norma actually mentioned run. What's important about that is I'm actually inviting all of you to join us. You have people like Dr. Levinson taking care of our community. You have leaders like Frankie encouraging people that have been here in this community for so long. You have Norma, who is getting new people encouraged to be part of this. And so tomorrow is actually Nike Run Club. The Dr. Brandt Foundation is inviting all of you to meet us here tomorrow at 7 o'clock. You will see these familiar faces tomorrow. And what we will actually be doing as a group, there are different pacers. So there are the runners, the joggers, walk club. And we'll actually be here together, and Frankie will lead that. And then we will actually all end up at the Shelbourne Hotel. And the Shelbourne will have complimentary beverages for all of us, and they will actually also have pool access for us so that we can continue this conversation amongst each other and then meet the hundreds of runners that come here to really just take part of this community. And so I just want to say thank you to the panelists here, and I'm going to open up. If there are any questions that you would like to ask, please feel free, and we're going to start a Q&A, and you can ask any questions for any of the panelists here, or you can ask a question for Stefan. And so thank you for the panelists. So great. Does anyone have any questions? Romeo can give the mic to anyone that has a question. So.
So the Nike Run Club is every week, or it's every week, and then how long?
Sure. So it's a great question. I hope that this doesn't come across as like just a sales pitch to you guys to come run with us. I hope it just at least starts the process of thinking that, you know, you might go to your treadmill at your gym, you might walk around your neighborhood, you might join another group somewhere else. So I don't want you to think that we're just telling you to come to ours. However, this is our home every Thursday night, and it's every Thursday night with the exception of Thanksgiving and 2 weeks in December. But the other 49 weeks or so, we're here, rain, shine. We've even battled some tropical storms and hurricane warnings. We're still here just calling it at the last moment. So we'll always be here for you. And that's one of the messages that we've had for 9 years, or 10 now, of consistency. But you asked about the distance. It really is however far you want to go that day. But typically our distance is, we call it an optimum social distance, about 3 to 3.5 miles after we have a little warm up. But the walk group might go out 10 minutes out and turn around. We have a sexy pace that goes out, and that's goes a little lighter on their way out. But we do break you up into groups, and luckily we have close to, even at night, some nights 10 pacers, 8 pacers that sort of guide you along the way through Miami Beach streets. But it's a great question. Every week we're here. Thursday night, Tuesday nights we're over at Brickell. And then we've got several other nights that we are at other parts of Miami. We're all the way through, actually even outside of Miami, to Weston, as far south as Homestead. There's a group in Homestead that 75 people gather on a Tuesday night in Homestead, in a somewhat dark area of Homestead, because it's not the most lit area, but they run together, because if not, they'd be running alone. But that group out there meets every Tuesday night as well, rain or shine. Yeah. Sure. Luckily, I have. Yeah. So she's asking how basically how to get, if I'm understanding your question correctly, how to get started with running. That.
Not with running, but you had said that the body is the first thing that you should fix. Give it to me. Any other activities besides running?
Oh, any other
you suggest?
activities.
Yeah.
I know that in the group, there's some folks that started with biking, a low impact way to kind of get yourself accustomed to using your legs again. You know, some of us think that you have bad knees and bad back, and in part it isn't that you have a bad knee or bad back or any of that. It's just you haven't been using it, and therefore let's call it just needs a little bit of use. So biking, swimming. Some folks like to paddleboard, anything that gets your heart rate going. But I don't know if you guys want to share other things, other activities.
Yeah, I would. It doesn't really matter what you do, right? What's important, especially for mental health, is that you do something, that you attend to yourself, to this physical being of yours in some fashion, so that you give it the attention that it deserves. People get hung up that they have to be fit in order to start doing exercise. That's madness. You only have to be consistent, and in the realm of your body, you just like. People talk to me often about yoga. I say, if you can do 3 minutes of stretching and a minute and a half of meditation every day, that's better than going to 1 class a week. Like, to just be consistently in relationship with your body is amazing for your mental and physical health and spiritual health. Like, it's all tied together. So it doesn't matter what you want to do. Just do something and do it frequently.
And I think that's great advice. I think one of the mistakes that we make, and I might make even when I'm talking to groups, is we talk about it as this work. In fact, the term workout is used, right? And most of us run from our jobs sometimes. And if you approach it in that manner, instead of approaching it in that manner, you approach it as more like play, right? I know that you're sitting there, I'm saying, I'm 40 years old. What is this guy telling me to go play? You know, the question's asked, I think, in a lot of group settings, when was the last time you went to play outside? You might remember maybe you were 12 years old and you asked your mom if you can go outside and play, and that was it. And now you're 40 or 50 years old and you haven't played since. So maybe approach it in that manner where you go out your door and you're just going to go play. You're going to go walk around the neighborhood. You feel good. You might move your feet a little quicker. You might go up the steps somewhere. You don't have to fall. You don't have to go to a track. You don't have to get on a specific device that's made for quote-unquote exercise or working out. Just go play a little bit. Move your body a bit. I know that Thursday nights here sometimes feel like we're just playing. In fact, we start our warm-up. We go up to the top of a parking garage sometimes. We move around the city in a way that's playful. Sounds a little childish, but that's basically what we're trying to do. Play a little bit.
Are there any other questions? Oh, yeah.
Doctor, I have a question for you. Dealing with communities that deal with hardships and communities that mental health is not like within their mind, especially within the Black and brown community, it's hard, like for me being Haitian, it's hard for me to come across the Haitian community and talk about mental health. What would you suggest, or how would you, and anyone on the panel as well, how would you go about that? Because this is something near and dear to my heart that is just hurting to see people hurt because they don't believe that they're able to talk to somebody or talk to anybody about what's going on.
Yeah, that's a big subject. There are a lot of cultural barriers to getting help. And some people struggle with it even individually, like they're incapable of asking for help lifting something. They're incapable of asking for help with their homework. The best way to bridge that gap is to offer help, you know, to show that there's a way. There's the cultural barriers around access to health care, whether it's physical or medical care or psychiatric, which is even harder in some cultures, is a big deal. And you're not wrong to sort of be left in awe around it because it's hard to break that barrier. But if it's an individual, like if there's someone in particular, the best way is to just nurture and encourage them to change. And oftentimes in some cultures through community, like oftentimes church is a great place to break those barriers, although that's sometimes the impediment too, so I don't know what to say. No answer. I don't have an answer to that, and especially in the Haitian community, it's very hard. When I did my training at Jackson, it was always something that we spent time talking about. So I wish I had an answer. There are people within the community. There are oftentimes, and especially in the Haitian community, there are some physician outreach groups that have some expertise in this.
Are there any other questions? Okay. So,
I wanted to add
Yeah.
to what you said, because that's part of the message, which is, you said something as part of our message. Sometimes it's not as much about you or your mental health seeking the advice or help from somebody that just has it all figured out. It involves actually that person or another person giving a bit. And I think at Run Club, I've realized that, and through the different nights that we've either had a social activity or whatnot, I find that someone else helps that person sort of connect, or that person get what they want or what they need at that moment. So if you do come out to the Run Club and maybe you're coming with this mentality, I'm coming to get, instead change that channel a bit and say, I'm coming to give, even though you might not have it all together. And I think you'd find that most of us that are running out there because we don't have it all together. But come out and with that mentality, you know what, I'm going to meet somebody else that maybe I can help them somehow. And if they help me out, great. But at the end of the day, I'm coming out to help someone better their day or better their life in some way, shape, or form. And it may not be that person that gives it back to you or helps you out. It may be something that happens down the road. I know that the history of the Miami Marathon includes a story like that, which is we started the race inspired by an individual that didn't even stick around to wait to see what he inspired looked like. In fact, he came 10 years later to see the race and kind of just said, awesome, cool. So sometimes we don't even have to expect anything in return. You inspire somebody and you don't have to wait around for a thank you sometimes. You don't have to wait around for anything. Just plant that seed. Let it be. It might come back to you later.
Yeah, and I would add to what you asked before, that there's an opportunity for you to be the instrument for change. Like, it's a community that's near and dear to you. You're part of it. You have an understanding of the inner workings of it in ways that an outsider wouldn't. Start to formulate a way that you can start to build community. Just like this foundation has built community, like the Run Club has built community, you can be the person that starts to build community by inspiring people to feel like they can ask questions or that you can offer information. It doesn't have to be something so much bigger than you. It can just be you. I guess that's it.
I have a question. Could you make a connection with epigenetics and the way the exercise and movement has on our genes?
It's a light question to close with.
Sure.
So what she's asking about in the context of epigenetics, right? Like, these are small parts of our gene story, our genetic story, that play a role when stimulated under certain sets of circumstances, right? Pressure translates to certain genes transcribing different proteins so that your body acts a different way. And the short answer would be exercise is an amazing example for how to interfere and alter the way your genome is playing out the story of your life. It can be an impediment, right? Like, you know, some people are genetically predisposed to be heavier than others. But still, a small step towards exercise, a small step towards activity will start to change the way the genes are translating their story down the line into your physiology, which changes the destiny of your body type, your attitude, your physiology, your neurochemistry. So we don't really understand epigenetics very well. People who tell you they understand the epigenetics really well are making it up, I think. I mean, we know a little bit, but we don't really know how it works. We are just starting to be able to see what it says, and that there are some people with certain little SNP mutations that point us in a different direction and maybe put us at some risk for this disease or some advantage as far as metabolizing that. But as far as how all of those things play out, it's really still a mystery. But with, you know, the next Windows upgrade, I'm sure we're all going to figure it out.
So before we end the panel and the Q&A, I want to just give a little bit more information about what hashtag Say I Love You really is. First of all, the foundation could not be made possible without the support of the Miami Foundation, and definitely could not be made possible without the support of our CEO, Stefan Coulot, and the Dr. Brandt skincare line. This whole event and the future ones that we're doing for this community and hopefully in other locations is made possible from the skincare line because of the commitment they have to the community. And I'm happy to see and I am happy to say that there are executives from the skincare line present at this event, and to be able to see that there are businesses that have foundations that are committed to making sure they're part of the community, to build the community, is very exciting. And one of the things that we're able to do is with the hashtag Say I Love You. Stefan touched on this. The foundation believes that if you say I love you to yourself, finding the self-love, which Dr. Levinson discussed, or saying I love you to someone else, that's the point where someone might make a healthier, a better, and a more positive decision in their life. And something that we've spoken with, even with Milana, who's also part of the skincare brand, is to focus on a balanced overall health and wellness decision and lifestyle. And I'm so excited that all of you were part of this panel. Thank you for being here to listen to what we have to say, to be part of what the foundation is doing, to support what the skincare line is doing. And also, I just want to tell everyone that this couldn't be made possible without the life and legacy of Dr. Frederick Brandt, who this foundation is about. And everything this foundation does in the future will always be in honor of his life, and also will be able to collaborate in things he's passionate about. And so when we're talking about the physical, the mental health, the food, that balanced lifestyle, we're really talking about wellness so we can take care of ourselves and the community. So I just want to say thank you to everyone that came out tonight. Thank you. So Nike actually has, we actually have some snacks and small bites. We also have some coconut water for everyone. Also, Nike has provided 20% off cards for all of the attendees. So please find me or Romeo so that we can give those out to everyone. And also we have journals from Nike that is being given out to all of you. So, oh, okay. Okay, yeah. Yeah. Did you want to see something? Okay, okay. And so now we're going to conclude this, and then we're going to have snacks and all of that. And again, I invite all of you to meet me here tomorrow for Nike Run Club, and that will be at 7 p.m. So thank you, everyone.